My millionaire grandpa found me and my daughter homeless under a bridge. I froze. My father had always said he was dead. He took us to a lavish mansion. Then he revealed a secret about my father that shattered everything. I never thought a life built on love could vanish like a footprint in the sand. One day I was Sarah, a woman with a modest home, a husband I adored, and a beautiful baby girl named Lily. The next, I was a ghost haunting the streets of Columbus, Ohio. My descent didn't start with a crash. It started with a whisper, vibration on a phone. A husband who started looking through me rather than at me. David was my world. Or so I thought. When Lily was born, I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes that I mistook for the weight of responsibility. But that fear was actually resentment. He didn't want a family. He wanted an escape. The night I found the messages from another woman wasn't a scene of screaming and broken plates. It was cold. "I can't do this anymore, Sarah," he said, packing a suitcase he had clearly hidden for weeks. "You're a good woman, but you're a burden I didn't choose to carry forever. I've met someone who makes me feel alive, not just like a paycheck provider." He left Lily's favorite stuffed bunny on the floor and walked out. No alimony, no child support, just a bank account he drained 2 days prior. I was left with 3 months of unpaid rent and a crying infant. I worked double shifts at a local diner, my feet blistering, my heart aching. I skipped meals until my ribs began to show, just so Lily could have her formula. But the math of poverty is cruel. No matter how many hours I worked, the debt grew faster. When the eviction notice finally hit the door, I did what any desperate daughter would do. I swallowed my pride, packed our lives into 2 weathered suitcases, and bought a bus ticket to my parents' house in Dayton. "Mom, Dad, please," I sobbed on their porch, the winter wind biting at Lily's pink cheeks. "It's just for a few months. Until I find a job. Until I'm back on my feet." My mother, Carol, looked at me with a face like carved stone. My father, Richard, whom I shared a name with but nothing else, didn't even get up from his recliner. "We told you David was a mistake," my mother said, not reaching out to hold her granddaughter. "Now you bring his mistakes to our doorstep. Fine. You can stay in the attic. But you earn your keep. Every penny." I thought the attic was a sanctuary. It was a cage. For months I was their maid. I scrubbed floors until my knees bled. I cooked meals for my brother Mark and his perfect family when they visited, while Lily and I were forced to eat leftovers in the kitchen, hidden away like a shameful secret. Mark was the golden child, a corporate lawyer with a luxury SUV. I was the disgrace who couldn't keep a man. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I had just finished an 11-hour shift when I heard them talking in the living room. "Mark and his kids are coming for the summer," my father's voice boomed. "They need the space, Carol. We can't have Sarah's brat waking them up at 6 a.m. It's been 6 months. She's leeching off us." "I'll tell her tomorrow," my mother replied. "She needs to realize that blood only goes so far when you're a failure." They didn't wait for tomorrow. They threw my bags onto the sidewalk that night. In the middle of a storm that felt like the sky was weeping for us. "Good luck, Sarah," my mother said, closing the door. The click of the deadbolt sounded like a guillotine. I stood there, clutching a 1-year-old Lily against my chest, protected only by a thin jacket. I had $42 in my pocket and nowhere to go. Homelessness isn't just the absence of a roof. It's the absence of a soul. You become invisible. People look past you as if you're a glitch in their reality. I spent the first few nights in a 24-hour bus station until the security guards realized I wasn't waiting for a bus. Then we moved to the shelters. But the shelters were overflowing, terrifying places where I had to sleep with my arm looped through the strap of my bag, terrified someone would steal the last of Lily's diapers. Eventually we ended up under the I-75 bridge. It was a cathedral of concrete and despair. The roar of the cars above was a constant reminder of a world that was moving on without us. I found a corner near a group of regulars, people who had been discarded by society just like me. There was Joe, a veteran with a hollow stare, and Maria, a woman who had lost her mind to grief but still had enough kindness to share her tattered tarp with us. "Keep the little one in the center," Maria whispered, her voice like dry leaves. "The wind can't find her there." The cold was an entity. It seeped into your bones, turning your blood to slush. I would sit for hours, rocking Lily, singing lullabies over the sound of the rain hitting the asphalt. I watched my daughter's face get thinner. I watched the spark in her eyes dim. That was the true torture. Not my own hunger, but the realization that I was failing the only person who loved me. I begged for work at every shop within walking distance. But who hires a woman who smells like wood smoke and rain? Who hires a mother with a baby strapped to her chest? On the 14th night, the storm turned vicious. The temperature plummeted. Lily started to cough, a deep, rattling sound that terrified me. Her forehead was burning. "Please," I whispered to the dark, the tears freezing on my cheeks. "I don't care about me. Just save her. Someone, anyone, please." I felt a presence before I saw him. The regulars went quiet. Usually at this hour, the only visitors we had were police officers telling us to move or predators looking for an easy mark. But this was different. Through the curtain of gray rain, a figure emerged. A tall man, leaning slightly on a silver-headed cane. He wore a long, charcoal cashmere coat that looked like it cost more than my parents' house. Behind him, a black luxury sedan sat idling at the curb, its headlights cutting through the fog like the eyes of a guardian beast. He stopped 5 feet away. He didn't look disgusted. He looked devastated. "Sarah," he called out. His voice was deep, resonant, and shaking with an emotion I couldn't identify. I pulled Lily closer, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Who are you? We don't have anything. Leave us alone." The man stepped into the yellow glow of a flickering street lamp. He looked to be in his late 60s, with a mane of silver hair and eyes the color of a stormy Atlantic, the exact same eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. "My name is Richard Whitmore," he said, his voice cracking. "And I have spent 24 years believing you were dead." Froze. "Whitmore. My father. He told me my grandfather died before I was born. He said you were a gambler who abandoned the family." The old man took another step, his face twisting in pain. "Your father, Kenneth. He didn't just lie to you, Sarah. He stole from my company, he forged my signature, and when I confronted him, he fled with your mother, telling everyone I had passed away so he could claim a life insurance policy he'd illegally set up. He looked at the tarp, the mud, and the shivering child in my arms. A roar of pure, unadulterated rage escaped his chest, directed at the son who had caused this. He left my granddaughter under a bridge." Richard's hands shook on his cane. "In the rain." He reached out a hand, gloved in soft leather. "Sarah, I am your blood. The real kind. The kind that doesn't walk away. Please. Let me take you home." I looked at Lily. She was barely breathing, her chest heaving with the effort. I looked at this stranger who claimed to be a ghost. I didn't care if it was a trap. I didn't care if he was crazy. He was warmth. He was a chance. "Help her," I sobbed, collapsing forward. Before I hit the wet concrete, his driver was there, catching me. Within seconds, we were whisked into the back of the sedan. The heater hummed to life, a sensation so divine I almost lost consciousness. Richard Whitmore took off his expensive coat and wrapped it around us, cradling both me and Lily as if we were the most precious jewels on earth. "It's over now, Sarah," he whispered into my hair. "The Whitmores have found you. And God help anyone who ever tries to hurt you again." The transition from the dirt of the underpass to the marble halls of the Whitmore estate was so jarring it felt like a fever dream. Richard didn't just give us a room. He gave us a fortress. For the first week I couldn't sleep in the king-sized bed. I found myself waking up in the middle of the night, heart racing, checking the floor for dampness, only to find Lily sleeping soundly in a hand-carved mahogany crib. her fever broken and her cheeks filled out by the grace of organic creams and specialized pediatric care. Richard was a man of immense power, the Titan of Tampa, they called him in the business journals. But with me, he was a silent observer, waiting for the trauma to recede. One morning, as we sat on the terrace overlooking the private bay, Richard pushed a folder across the table. "I've settled the immediate issues," he said calmly. "The diner you worked at. I bought the building. The manager who fired you for being a mother. He's currently looking for work in another state. But Sarah, that is small-minded revenge. I want to give you the world. Not as a gift, but as a weapon." "I don't know how to be a Whitmore, grandfather," I whispered, looking at my calloused hands. "I'm just a waitress who got dumped." "No," Richard snapped, his eyes flashing with pride. "You are a woman who survived a winter under a bridge with a child. You have more grit than any MBA I've ever hired. I'm going to put you through the most rigorous training of your life. You will learn the business from the dirt to the sky. And when you are ready, you will be the one to decide the fate of those who discarded you." The next 3 years were a blur of fire and steel. I didn't go to a traditional university. I went to the Richard Whitmore School of Survival. By day, I was tutored by top-tier economists and legal experts. By night, I studied blueprints of skyscrapers and urban development. I transformed. The shy, broken girl died under that bridge. In her place emerged a woman with a voice of silk and a mind like a razor. I learned to navigate boardrooms where men tried to intimidate me, only to find that I had already anticipated their every move. By the time Lily was 4, I was no longer a trainee. I was the chief operating officer of Whitmore Properties. I was the woman who had doubled the company's portfolio in 24 months. But I never forgot the cold. I started the Bridge Foundation, a multi-million-dollar initiative that turned abandoned hotels into high-tech housing for single mothers. I made sure they had childcare, education, and dignity, the things I was denied. I was a public figure now. Success story. And that was exactly what I needed to draw the rats out of their holes. The trap was set at the Whitmore 50th Anniversary Gala. It was the event of the decade, attended by every power player in the country. My face was on the cover of Business Insider, titled The Steel Heiress. I knew they would come. Greed is a homing beacon for people like my parents and my ex-husband. I was standing near the grand staircase, wearing a gown of midnight blue silk and diamonds that sparkled like the stars I used to pray to. Lily, a miniature princess in white lace, was holding Richard's hand nearby. "Sarah, is that really you?" Turned slowly. There they were. My father, Kenneth, wearing a suit that was too tight for his midsection, and my mother, Carol, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and predatory hunger. Behind them stood David, my ex-husband. He looked haggard, his new life clearly having soured once the money ran out. "Oh, Sarah, darling." My mother lunged forward as if to hug me, but I stepped back, my expression as cold as the frost on that Dayton porch. "Do I know you?" I asked, my voice amplified slightly by the microphone near the podium. "It's us, honey. Your parents." My father chimed in, trying to sound jovial while his eyes darted to the diamond necklace around my neck. "We saw you on the news. We knew you'd make it. We always said you had that spark. We only threw you out to, give you that tough love to motivate you." The room went silent. The elite of Florida were watching. "Tough love," echoed. I looked at David, who was trying to muster a charming smile. "Sarah, babe." David stepped forward. "I made a huge mistake. I never stopped thinking about you and Lily. I'm here to take my family back. We can be a team again." I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Richard. He looked at Kenneth, the son who had left him for dead and stolen his legacy. "Kenneth," Richard said, his voice like a low-frequency earthquake. "You told my granddaughter I was dead. You told her I was a gambler. You let her starve under a bridge while you ate steak in your warm house." Kenneth paled. "Dad, you're supposed to be. I'm alive enough to see you for what you are," Richard growled. I stepped forward, towering over them in my heels and my confidence. You didn't come here because you love me, I said to my parents. You came here because the bank is foreclosing on your house in Dayton, and you thought your burden had turned into a gold mine. I turned to David. And you? You didn't come for Lily. You came because you're $30,000 in debt to people who don't take no for an answer. I signaled to the security team. I have a gift for you all. Outside there are 3 one-way bus tickets to Dayton, and a list of every homeless shelter in the state of Ohio. I've made sure your names are blacklisted from every Whitmore charity and every affiliate company. You wanted me to stand on my own feet. Well, now it's your turn. You can't do this. My mother shrieked. We're family. Family is a verb, Carol, I said, turning my back on them. And you never learned how to spell it. As security dragged them out of the hall, their screams for mercy fading into the night, I felt the final shard of ice in my heart melt. I looked down at Lily, who was watching me with wide, adoring eyes. Mommy, why were those people shouting? She asked. I knelt down, ignoring the expensive silk of my dress touching the floor, and kissed her forehead. They were just ghosts from a very long time ago, baby, I whispered. And they can't hurt us anymore. We're home. Richard walked over and put his arms around both of us. The applause started then, not for the money or the jewels, but for the survival. The storm had passed. The bridge was a memory. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just Sarah. I was a Whitmore, and the world was finally ours.